I think I'm pretty bullish on TikTok figuring that out and figuring out more of the landscape for how they end up driving Amazon sales and other channel sales too. I just think TikTok is such a valuable platform I still think it's underutilized by most brands for how it can really influence sales. I mean, I think about like my wife, she uses TikTok exclusively to research things that she may want to buy. So she's looking for a new vacuum cleaner. She's guaranteed been through TikTok. TikTok's a search engine for her.
Tell your wife I just bought a Dyson dupe and it's wonderful.
This is You Should Talk To, a podcast for busy marketing leaders who are looking for support and tips on getting shit done. In each episode, Daniel Weiner interviews marketing leaders and discusses their experience, successes, and failures around hiring agencies. If you're interested in finding and choosing the right agency partner, then let's jump in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the You Should Talk To podcast. I am your host, your sponsor, your everything, Daniel Weiner. This podcast is brought to you by You Should Talk To. You Should Talk To pairs brands and marketers for free with vetted agencies and or freelancers because finding great agencies is a pain. Super excited today to be joined by TR Wilhoit, who is the VP of ECommerce at Casemate. TR, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
Thank you also for joining us during holiday season as an e-commerce and direct-to-consumer portion of your brand. So appreciate that as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I kind of need a break, I think, from the madness. So
love it. Well, we can hang out here as long as you'd like. It's a safe space. But we will dive right in. What is an unpopular opinion you have in the marketing world or a hot take of sorts?
Oh, gosh. Let me narrow it down.
Yeah, these are usually like 30 or 45 minutes. So
this is the hot take.
I think I have to pay my editor more if we go over. So yeah.
Oh man, I think that the use of AI is overblown a bit, and it's a little too early for most platforms and services of how they pitch it. And that even relates into, from marketing specifically, I think, it's a big proposal point for a lot of vendors right now. That mainly on the software side, I'll say, like marketing, not from an agency side, but more from the software side, that they're pitching AI capabilities. But I would say, at least from my experience here, that that's the least utilized component of any software we might be looking for. That generally we're looking for something not because of that. It's like an add-on. Oh, it also has this function. But a lot of times it's hard to realize that in the current business landscape. I think we're probably 2 to 5 years from, oh, okay, it's actually like, this is what we're using this for. Maybe that's specific to our business. I don't know.
No, I actually love the take and I agree. Yeah, it's interesting to me. I see a lot of agencies talking about AI and I laugh because I'm like, I can't, I hear you're not replying to emails fast or like returning people's phone calls, like,
Yep.
Or you're trying to master AI. Like maybe we do the basics first. So I like the take.
Yeah. And I think, one of the best use cases is the copy side for like emails, but honestly, even like Apple's most recent ad, I think I saw a great screenshot on LinkedIn where someone had taken like the screenshot from the Apple ad about Apple Intelligence, which honestly, part of me is like, it's a little vacuous for Apple to call it Apple Intelligence. It's like, I don't know if Steve Jobs would ever approve this.
Sure. RIP Steve.
Yeah, I was like, AI, Apple, I get it. But it made the copy worse in the email. Like it made it really generic. It was like a fun email someone had written back. And yeah, maybe it's like off brand or something. Someone would say that, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm emailing and it's like, it looks like a more personal time toned email, even in the business setting. I probably know the person well. And like, it made it really generic, like a really generic take. It said, best regards and all that. I'm just like, that's just not necessary.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's interesting too. This is not a groundbreaking take for me because I've heard many people make it, but I do agree with it that, in an increasingly AI-driven world at scale, the people not using AI are the ones who then stand out. So, it'll be interesting to see how it continues to grow.
Totally.
Yeah. You've spent much of your career on the agency side. You're now leading e-com on the brand side. Tell us a little bit about Casemate first. And then my biggest question I have for everybody is, what's the biggest difference you've seen agency to brand? How do you, to people considering potentially making the switch?
Yeah, it is a big switch. So I'll come back to the agency versus brand difference, but this Casemate has been around since 2005. Been in large retailers, working with wireless carriers, selling phone cases, mobile accessories. The first 15 years of the company is mostly phone cases and some ancillary devices, iPads, things like that. Some licensed brand partners and our house brands as well. The last 5 years or so since COVID, we switched into really maximizing and getting better at all the internal supply chain functions, like really honing in on what we're good at, which is delivering things really quickly to customers, and being able to launch products really quickly. So that's what we're really good at, I think, is having an idea and turning it into reality faster than a lot of companies can do. Not having long lead times and working really closely with our customers. From an online perspective, we've definitely leaned more into the fashion space in the last few years, launching different products that are less phone case, as people don't change their phones that often, which, the iPhone's too good. So who needs the newest one all the time? So knowing that business is not growing necessarily, we've gotten into a lot of other areas for more beach products, things like that, which is really exciting. So always new things happening. So I think, the biggest adjustment though, in thinking agency side versus brand side, I was on the agency side working with Casemate as a client. So I did the classic go from client, working on the client, to now client in-house, which happens every so often.
A highly sought after free agent, like a draft prospect, you entered the transfer portal and got picked up.
Yeah. Some people want that. Now there's a year in between that. So, I started my career at a small agency called IQ that's now called Mighty Roar. Still some really good people over there, so give them a shout out. And I think they heavily focus on financial services, but some good people there. Transferred to 44, which is now Bounteous, pretty large agency globally now at this point. I was at Publicis Group at Performix for 1 year doing Toyota, so that was my big holding company experience, and I really liked the people there. Not sure the processes are my thing, but learned that along the way.
Sure.
And then, when it came to joining Casemate, I thought my entire time on the agency side, I was like, what are my clients doing? Like, why are they not responding to my email, 5 seconds after I send it? What is this? Like, what is why is there so much process? Why do I have to wait a week to show them these numbers? Whatever it is. And I learned when I came in on the brand side that there's just so much more going on internally, and there's so much more dynamic types of work you're having to do, and so much more communication, that I think agencies, internally are actually as loose as they can be, and like it's a fun environment that can be challenging for people, but you kind of get used to having to communicate quickly with people, right? You're talking to your colleagues. If you're on a team and you're running media like I was, I'm talking to my team all the time. I might be in a platform, but I'm like sending chats, all these things.
Sure.
While being on the brand side, the same thing's happening, but you're dealing with different challenges. I just think it doesn't match up one-to-one, but I learned really quickly that, okay, there's different needs, there's different stakeholders, and there's even more stakeholders that you would have at an agency. An agency can be really simple. I have my client and I know who the main point of contact is, and that's the decision maker. Great, done. On the brand side, there's a lot more decision makers. It's way simpler, as hard as it can be to have 9 or 10 clients. If you were like me, at least I knew, okay, this one person's going to say yes or no to this. Coming on the brand side, I'm like, okay, I have finance needs this. The head of finance might ask this question. I have marketing that has different needs. I have, my own needs for e-commerce that I'm asking people for. So it's just a little more dynamic. I think that's been an interesting challenge is, how do you communicate effectively with people that are in different specific types of roles where they deal with different challenges? You're not just talking about marketing or talking about your channel,
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. I won't even begin to hold you to answering which one is easier, because I don't think there really is an answer. But I do think it's interesting. My general, feedback to folks, I think working at an agency on numerous clients early in your career is, if I had to say, better. I think there's something to be said for switching back and forth between and like being able to pivot so quickly between different clients and different projects and different types of work with different goals and different stakeholders and stuff. Not that that doesn't happen inside of a brand, but to your point, it's different. They're all on your same team. So I think there's definitely merit. And I think working at both, to your point, in your career path is, see what you like better.
Well, I think too, something I thought about looking back on being on the agency side and being at, working with all different types of clients, you kind of feel like you're fast tracked. It's, my boss here has used the term, it's like you're getting the real time MBA. And I talked to him, I was like, should I get an MBA? And he's like, no. He has one. Like, where should I go? He's like, no, you're going to get one while you're here. I was like, okay, and I understand that now more, fast forward 3-4 years. Oh yeah, I get that. Like, I don't know how hard the test would be at this point, dealing with real business issues. But, I look back at the advertising side, what I ran into is sometimes I'd feel frustrated in my career growth because I feel like I'm so much further ahead than some people. Like if I were to go straight into a brand, say it's a large brand, publicly traded company, when I started my career, I feel like I would have been a little frustrated with the process and how fast or slow it might move, right? I would say it's probably the slow side, that there's hurdles, there's red tape. On the agency side, at least the agencies I was at, I felt like I had some, I had to figure it out when I was at the public side at Publicis. I had to figure out how to communicate a little bit more effectively with them because there was a language they spoke that was different than the independents. And the independents to me, it was a little more like laissez-faire. Like I could just, talk about an idea with someone that's 2 rungs above me and it was a big deal. And then coming to case management, I feel the same way. Like we don't have a lot of those restrictions, which is good. Some people have a hard time adjusting to that. They're not used to, CEO asking them a question and they get freaked out by that. My first boss was a CEO at an agency and I was editing blogs, for him and whatever else he needed, like this search issue. I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out.
Now I went publicly traded company to agency and now entrepreneurship. And I just remember like calling my dad at an age of, 22 or 23, however old I was, and saying like, I don't know how I can do this with the next,
right.
He was like, what do you mean? That's just what you do. I was like, it's so slow. Like everything takes like forever to like do anything. We don't do anything all day, and stuff like that. I did feel, to your point, at an agency, it just, even if things took a while, it just felt like I was constantly in motion, which is better for me. So to switch to your current role, I'm curious. I find with a lot of folks, like, I don't know, the world still seems in a somewhat state of disarray, at least with people I chat with in terms of marketing and job market and stuff like that. What's your best piece of advice to marketing leaders out there in your seat about how to survive and thrive for the rest of this year and into 2025?
I think for me, you really have to be more dynamic and open, I think, than you had to be in the past. I think spend less time in PowerPoint is a big thing. Like spend more time with the people in your team talking through issues or talking to colleagues or people you've met. Like, some of the most valuable conversations I've had for marketing the last year have been, I met someone at a conference and I reached out to them and said, hey, can I just bounce some ideas off you? It's just to have a chat. I'm curious, this vendor renewal's coming up and I just want to know, like, what was your thoughts on them? Just to get some perspective. And I think it's really nice to have those conversations and like to try to be involved somewhat with, people that are doing similar things to you. So I think try to make some connections with other people in similar roles. I don't worry too much about the competitive side of that or like whether there's, we make the same type of products or not. I haven't run into that, but, I try to stay connected to some people and just have open conversations with people I've met at, a vendor conference or like attended, an Atlanta-based digital conference and just like, learn something about their business, but also bounce some ideas off of, because even businesses that don't match up. I was at an event in Woodstock, Cherokee County recently, and just meeting people that work in a completely different category, but hey, we have the same tech stack. And like, what are you facing challenges on? And, it's interesting to have those conversations. But I think the biggest thing, if you're working at a brand and you're in marketing especially, is just to look at the new things. Don't get shiny object syndrome. There's a million new things a day. The AI thing, whatever it is, some of that matters, some of it doesn't. And I think if you focus on the basics and then the communication side and like the things you've learned or the things whatever the channels you're strongest on, is like try to play to your strengths in certain areas. And then if you have weaknesses, I think, one, try to learn some things on your own, but try to be hands-on, I think, in learning with the team and not just, I always look at it like I'm not just going to staff someone to do a capability that I have no understanding of. Like I want to have some baseline understanding of some things. If I'm staffing someone on email marketing, like if I didn't know anything about email marketing, I would have a hard time judging that individual or judging a vendor, even if I hired an agency for that. So I think to kind of sum up, I think being dynamic for me is just being open to new ideas, talking with the team, like making sure that you're plugged in and not focus too much on like reporting results. I kind of get paralyzed by like if I was doing PowerPoints and reporting on the last promo period every week and having to deliver these things and not spending enough time having discussions. I'm an open thinker when it comes to that. It frustrates people sometimes because I'm like, I'm going to ideate. And some people don't want to hear ideas until they're commands. So, but I think for me, it's just about, being open to those new opportunities and really like thinking about what are the basics and what ground can you cover?
I like it. You brought up the agency word. So I'll move into my favorite portion. Most marketing leaders I speak to at your level, VP, CMO, are getting hit up a million times a day everywhere. Email, different communities, LinkedIn, text, phone, all that sort of stuff. Are you getting bombarded with inbound from agencies across the board?
Oh yeah, I've got a long list of LinkedIn purgatory.
If you had to give a PSA of sorts, so I'll start with mine that I give on every episode. And to most agencies, it is just to chill out, relax, and take a deep breath. Do you have a message to agencies out there? You're an attractive brand, in my opinion. E-commerce, consumer focus, probably some bandwidth to do cool work creatively, I would argue. For agencies out there, which I would argue is a lot of them who want to work with you, what's your PSA or, what's a way to break through? I'll put that in the vein of, is there a way for anybody to break through if you're not in market for an agency? Are you open to taking calls outside of, I need this at this moment?
I think it depends, on the agency side, a lot of times when I've had really good partners, it starts off with like one thing and then it turns into multiple channels, right?
Sure.
Like it's that one thing that they've hit on that I need, or it's a referral, right? I think the strongest thing is to like for agencies is to, if it's a referral from someone I know, I'm much more likely to be interested and be like, oh, okay. Like if someone told me about their agency and it's like, oh, we're using them, really like them, just thought you might like them too. It's still to me about timing. Like it's not always going to be the right timing, but I'm much more open to that than more of the direct side. I think, I have a funny example for me of what not to do, which is the automated LinkedIn messaging. When I get an automated LinkedIn message, it's funny, it was, T.R. All those AI tools have no idea how to put my whole name in there. So if I get a message that says T and comma, I know someone's done something wrong.
They think your last name's R and your first name's T?
Right. It just takes the T only as my name. It just leaves off after the punctuation, thinking that's not a part of the name. So I always know it's automated.
When I think of how AI hasn't figured out that yet, in many cases, I'm like, oh boy, like we're still a ways away.
I think the software providers are probably the worst at that. I don't think agencies are too at fault on that. A lot of times agencies will just hammer me with emails if I'm on a list or something. And those generally never break through. I think the referrals, if I got a personal LinkedIn message, like someone sent me an email or something, I'm going to read it. If it's like, I can tell it's not written there properly or they have a connection to me that's not fully irrelevant, or a guess, you don't have to be like quirky and, off color or something like that to like get my attention. Because I know that's a big thing in the sales cycle, I think it's just being honest, hey, I understand. I worked at agencies, like, you don't have to tell me that you don't have to pretend like you're not trying to sell me your services. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm curious. I've seen a big shift, especially since COVID, but a little bit before then, because I came from a small independent agency, I've seen brands, especially big brands, moving away from big holding company agencies, moving towards smaller specialized agencies who are specialized in, say, 1 to 2 things, which is, in line with what you said of starting with one thing. What do you think of that trend in general? Is that how you think of agencies, when you're on the hunt or in market for an agency potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening now is probably it's not that different than what happened a few years ago. I think the big agencies have been experiencing this for a while now, which is some attrition based on specialty. I do think that most agencies, even if they pitch that they're full service, are really good at a few things. And I think the best clients I can think about, like when at some agencies I was at, when clients seemed to understand what we were really good at and you kind of understood what you could really do for them, those were the best relationships where you had that back and forth, like, okay, we actually understand this business. I think that's hard to do with the large agencies, especially when you have the big evil strategy type thing, which I came from strategy. I get that.
It's a dirty word in my world.
Yeah, they're scared of it. I do think there's still plenty out there for large agencies to take on, like, full accounts with everything taken by one partner. But I do think there is an emerging scale of these small independent agencies that are really good at one thing or really specific at something. And it's not about what I've noticed, at least I've worked with some smaller agencies, now working with one agency on all of our things at the moment that's independent as well. I came to them through the affiliate channel, and they're really good at affiliate. I talked to another brand that I'm friends with that just signed on with them for affiliate too. Same thing happened to me. And then the referral, I was like, oh, they're great.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they've kind of built their business on. I think that's really smart because it's a people-based business for that, right? It's not about the software they have or like we've built our own proprietary tool. Like that doesn't seem to be coming up as much. Like the small guys are coming in and saying, hey, I'm running my own ads on Meta and this is like my results. You want me to run your ads too? And that's attractive, I think, to marketers these days where there's like, okay, maybe I try these guys for one thing, and if they're really good at it, they get more.
Yeah, I think that's the struggle for agencies like you mentioned. Again, it's truthfully just the temptation. If you have a good experience with them for that one thing that they're really great at, to go, hey, could you do this? And they go, I don't know, we don't really do that. And you go, well, come on, Mike. And, you're dangling some budget potentially. I think the struggle for agencies is to say, no, like we're not, and we're willing to forego trying to do this and tarnish the original stuff to do well, on this new thing. But I think truthfully, COVID was kind of the great equalizer in agency land because it pulled the curtain back a little. I think people realized, oh shit, like there's talented people everywhere. Like, and like maybe we don't need a big shiny office in New York, although I am a big proponent of agencies having office space. And I think it does. There is something about in person that could be a whole other episode. I'm sure somebody will comment on this and tell me I'm wrong. But, it's hard to get the same energy and again, just bouncing ideas off of people in person. But yeah, I think COVID just let people know, like, even at a massive agency, there's still probably 5 or 10 people working on your account. There's not 1,000 people working on that every day. So yeah, I think COVID kind of leveled the playing field a little bit for folks.
Totally.
Without naming names here, can you think of a negative agency experience you've had in the past and what made it so negative?
Yeah, I mean, I've had my share of agencies. Since I've been here too, and I inherited some when I first got here. I think there's a couple things I could probably point to. One is I think, when we have a specialty agency doing search marketing, we had SEO as part of that. We used to call it SEM. I don't know if anyone says that anymore. Which is, basically Google ads, right?
They do in my world.
Well, that. SEO and SEM. I haven't put that in the PowerPoint in a long time.
What do you call it? Just performance in general?
I would just do Google ads or paid search. That's what I would call it. They were doing both. And, I got here and I looked at the campaigns and I'm like, okay, 99% of the spend and revenues from one automated campaign. And then the SEO report I was getting was, 50 pages of every keyword we ranked for. And I was just like, okay, this is doing nothing. And like, clearly they went on autopilot at some point and just, whether it was a staffing issue or something. And I was like, this is crazy. So that, that's bad from one perspective of like, okay, the reporting is useless. Two, they're not showing their value in any way, which was, a challenge. And that was an easier fix, I think.
Did they own it when you brought it up?
Partially, but not really. I think that there was just some confusion. It was, it was one of those things where I inherited the agency brought on by someone else. And so they may have had different goals at the time.
Sure.
So I kind of took that in stride. I think they did end up taking it in stride. Everything's good. I'm sure they're still doing fine. I had another experience where, we've signed on for some work on a certain channel and, the team you think you're getting is then a different team. You may have different faces on there, but they never seem to really grasp the business, and what your goals were, and they never really hit the goals. So that's one of those, 6 months later, I'm like, okay, I think we're just done here. And they didn't fight it at all. So I'm like, I just don't think they wanted to work on the business in a few months. So yeah, I'm sure there's other things I could point to, but if I harp on too much negative stuff, I'll start feeling bad.
No, we'll switch to, I joke, we don't name names on the positivity as well, because, no free publicity in 2024. But yeah, can you think of a positive agency experience you've had as well, and what actually made it positive?
I think the most positive agency experiences I've had are based on the people that really seem to understand what your needs are proactive, like communicate well, and at no point seem to, belittle business or like the performance of something or like explain it away.
Yeah.
And just come back with solutions for how they want to fix it or what they want to try differently. I think that's been, a refreshing thing, is having the right people that seem like they're in the right seats that are passionate about it. You can tell. I don't think, even with Zoom and stuff and like doing video calls, like you can tell when someone really seems to grasp what they're proposing you, and that they're not just selling you on something, that this is the person that can run the channel or whatever you're doing the way you want them to, and the way you expect them to. And they even, I would say from my experience with this partner, they brought new ideas to the table that we didn't even think of. And I think that's huge too, is like, actually leveraging the one benefit I think of having an agency, you would expect is, hey, are there other client learnings you can apply to my business? Because there has to be, right? I think that partner has done that really well, is taking things that, hey, we have a similar business. I think we could take you down this path. And it's really great. I think it's all about the communication to me, though, is how well they can communicate.
I agree. I think I post about it frequently on LinkedIn and on this podcast that, there's two things I wrote down here that based on what you just said, that, whenever agencies tell me they have a proprietary process or something, I kind of black out, and all I think is, people are the only differentiator. I'm not saying your process isn't good or streamlined or any of that, but like, within however many percentage points, for the most part, like the process is the general process and stuff like that. And then, to your point, enthusiasm in every single interaction goes such a long way. There are agencies that retain business for years based on enthusiasm, like, again, eventually you'll get fired if you suck at what you do or like the results don't show up, but enthusiasm for the business. And again, I don't mean trying and like you deserve a medal or an award for trying, but like not everything works in marketing, and agencies who tell you they have the secret to, your success as a brand, I say, are telling a white lie. But enthusiasm for the business and to arrive at what works and figuring out what works and all of that sort of stuff goes such a long way.
Totally. And I'll say too, I'll add, since I did come from the agency world, like I've had, clients I would consider bad clients. And that, if any of my former colleagues hear this, I've had abusive clients that were abusive in their language and how they talked to the agency, and they'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I was broken. My last client I worked with at my old agency, I was very much a broken man after that scenario play out. And if any of them are listening to it, they probably know who I'm talking about. So if you've been in this agency land for enough time, everybody, I think, has their, know, that type of situation. So,
which I hope it's improved some. And I try to think about that. What I'm communicating to now is like, I've been on the other side of it. On the flip side, what can be frustrating on the brand side is like, I feel like I have a good enough understanding of how they should be engaging me that I can end up kind of more frustrated sometimes being like, I don't think you're spending enough time on my account. And on the flip side, I think I can be more open with some of the senior leadership at the agencies too about that and say like, you don't have to sugarcoat this stuff to me. Like, I understand they're not spending 8 hours a day on me. Like, I get that. Like, I've been there. But if you're going to ask me for more fees, I want to make sure that we have some dedicated people and we're not rotating things around. I'm not getting like a mixture of who's doing what, or, some random person is updating my bids or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
whenever an agency tells me there's any sort that I work with that tells me there's any sort of conflict with a brand or anything like that, my general opinion of the best clients, or I'll ask the agency if they fall into this, is I think the best clients are tough but fair. So I don't expect, everything to be roses, but my question generally back to agencies is like, is what they're, again, there's no place to be abusive or, yell at people and stuff like that. But my question sometimes is like, that sounds like tough feedback, but like, is it fair? And most of the time it's there's some fairness to that and stuff like that. But I mean, I've been doing this in this capacity for a little over 4 years now. Like, virtually, I've been very fortunate that very few successful matches have had any sort of like major turmoil. Every agency and brand who start working together eventually have some sort of situation, right? It's how you get past that. But the biggest thing I find is just a lack of communication, making too many assumptions, like, they probably know that that's what we're thinking or what we're working on and stuff like that. And then shying away from phone calls. Like, virtually every conflict I've ever had in my life on the agency side is cured. A 20 email thread is cured with a 30-second phone call.
Right. Yeah.
So many people are afraid to pick up the phone. Like, it's wild to me. And some people think it's groundbreaking when I recommend it. I'm like, hey, have you picked up the phone yet? They're like, no, you think we should do that? I'm like, you should have done that 15 emails ago. Like, so.
Yeah, that's still, there's still a lot of email communication that happens too. And I'm like ready to, I'm in a lot of Slacks now, which is different. I've actually recently, we're onboarded a new tech partner that we really like, but I just said, I'm not joining the Slack. Like, I fed my team. I'm like, you guys, maybe we guys can nail it. And like, you talk to them as much as you want about getting this stuff done, but like, I can't possibly be in another Slack right now. Which I didn't think I would run into that I ran into having too many chats with vendors. Because it seems like it's such a good thing for certain applications, for certain needs. Like, I like having an agency Slack or something that I can just like ask a question in. Because I think it's more immediate than a email. I also understand why an agency wouldn't want to do that. So I can see both sides of it. But to your point on the phone call thing, I'm like, I'd rather, just talk about it for a few minutes, not have to like plan out a call and like wait. It was an issue.
Yeah, you just get more human stuff. The impromptu phone call, it's just more normal. Hey, you got 2 minutes to chat? And then usually they do. So we'll finish with a couple. What are you most bullish about or excited about in the marketing space? And normally I say not AI, but you've already said it's not AI, so I'm curious.
Here's the thing, I use AI a lot. Like, ChatGPT is like my go-to for helping with, understanding certain contract language, understanding, analyzing some data sets if I need it, like reformatting stuff. I love it for myself.
Sure.
I just didn't think that it applied to business as much, or like full business units and business cases. I think I'm really bullish about, honestly, I think mobile apps. We launched a mobile app last year, and I'm really bullish about how that's going for us. I think the continued push on mobile, and like, I actually think TikTok, they've had some challenges with Shop this year. We launched TikTok Shop, and it's been pretty big for us. And
I'm obsessed with TikTok Shop. Nah.
And I think it's going to take a little bit more time, but I think I'm pretty bullish on TikTok figuring that out and figuring out more of the landscape for how they end up driving Amazon sales and other channel sales too. I just think TikTok is such a valuable platform that is I still think it's underutilized by most brands for how it can really influence sales. I mean, I think about like my wife, she uses TikTok exclusively to research things that she may want to buy. So she's looking for a new vacuum cleaner. She's guaranteed been through TikTok. TikTok's a search engine for her.
Tell your wife I just bought a Dyson dupe and it's wonderful.
So,
She needs a Reco. Like, it's
nice. Yeah, I mean, it's really useful as a search tool to see opinions and perspective. And it's such a, you have the shop portion, you have the content portion, you have the review portion, you get the memes and all of the goofy videos, but it's like, it can really make a difference for how something sells for you as a brand on Amazon or everywhere else if you can figure out how to utilize it. And even if you're like if you're not a brand that feels like I just can't do shop, like I can't connect the way, I think the TikTok affiliate space is so big. It's such a big opportunity. And I'm really bullish on the affiliate space picking up even more. Like affiliate marketing is such an old school thing. And it's funny to think that it's now, in 1995, you could do affiliate marketing on Share a Sale. Fast forward, TikTok has their affiliate platform and most brands are probably underutilizing it for what it could truly do for them. And the brands that are utilizing it well, there's a lot you've never heard of, but they might be doing $1 million a week on
it's crazy
with some of these affiliates.
It's so easy. I had mentioned to my brother, like, oh, you should check it out. He was like, what's the difference between shopping on Instagram? And I was like, I don't know, but it's so much more easy. Like,
yes,
just more seamlessly integrated. It's wild.
Totally.
What keeps you up from a business standpoint or stresses you out the most?
Oh,
that was a heavy sigh. Let it out.
No, I think, the pace of technology can be tough. I think, it feels like you're making, I'm making updates to my Shopify site or whatever. And then, now there's a new version of it or there's a new thing and you got to update this. I think that's can be a challenge of keeping everything updated to the most current. I think media performance, is such an up and down thing. This being an election year made it tougher too, where, hey, do we blame CPMs on an election or do we not? And it's like, okay, you look how much money that was spent, you have to blame some of it. But now coming out of the election, things haven't changed a lot. So or is it just a change in behavior? And are people responding differently to ads? So I think, the KPIs are tough. It's like, what is if I, keep doing 7-day look backs, what's my CPA today? Am I hitting my targets? I think that's the biggest thing is like making sure it seems like it's harder now to maintain consistency in some of the channels when it comes to media spend. And
the internet ruined everything.
Right. It's not such an easy journey map that we made 15 years ago.
It's also, I find, just more like unpredictable to your point, which I think is also exciting. Like when you talked about TikTok, I don't know if it's debatable even, but TikTok is, in my opinion, the only platform that affords you the opportunity for one piece of content from a random ass brand to go viral or an individual to, go crazy and stuff like that and legitimately change your life. It could happen on Instagram. Something could happen with YouTube if the right people share it and stuff like that. But with TikTok and however their algorithm is set up, it was wild from an organic perspective.
Yeah, and I think for us, we've learned too, like with the affiliate marketing with that too, is it's about having other people talk about your things too. I think, look, we're trying to invest less in us screaming about our own products and trying to get other people to be as excited as we are that actually like the products, right?
Yeah.
When you find what the TikTok side, it's like all it takes is one affiliate, one video that'll drive all your sales. You may have to send out 500 products, but it's worth it to see what it could do for the rest of your business.
No, I love it. We'll finish with a couple fun ones here. What was your very first job?
Very first job, I taught guitar lessons when I was 15.
Love it. Some illegal employment. I love it.
Technically, yeah. So, my dad would come by after he got off work and pick me up at the music store.
That's awesome. You still play guitar?
I do, yeah. So I played guitar for a long time. But yeah, I was teaching in 9th grade, essentially 9th or 10th grade, and still play a lot today, but taught all through high school, most of it. I had a lot of students that now it's like weird because that's a long time ago. And I see the students now, it's like they're married and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's just strange.
Wild. What would your final meal be?
Oof. I have to say hot wings, because that's for sure. Probably like
from where and what style?
Oh my gosh. From where? I don't know. I don't know if I could pick from where. Well, I'd pick the local, or I'd pick Righteous Room in Atlanta. These are my favorite.
Never had the Righteous Room ones.
Oh, Righteous Room's amazing. The mixed sauce, incredible. Buffalo Korean, I think, is the one at the local that I would get. But I would also do like fajita nachos.
Okay. Love it. A smorgasbord.
Yep.
And then my final question, who's somebody who inspires you personally, professionally, or both?
Oh, it's a great question. I definitely look up to some of the people I worked for in the past that I really liked. Like my first boss, I really looked up to. He was a CEO at IQ, Tony Quinn. And he taught me a lot about the ad business. He came from like working for Dick Clark as a producer and like a lot of big agencies, being a copywriter at Leo Burnett. He had this background and taught me a lot about how to deal with clients, I think, and like how to present yourself and present in general. Was good at the pitching side of things. And then I had another boss at 44, Adam Rowe, who used to be at Casemate as well. And he taught me a lot about just day-to-day process of how to keep working on things. And he was really iterative. And I think I got a lot of like how I communicate internally with my team from him. Like, hey, coming in on a Monday and looking back at what happened last week and trying to make changes or make adjustments or, learn from something. I think he was really good at that part.
Awesome. No, I love it. I appreciate you joining. Before we go, any plugs for Casemate? Anything new coming into holiday? You mentioned the app. What should folks take away from this around your world?
Yeah, I mean, get the app. Casemate is great. Black Friday coming up, we'll have some great deals. So that's always good. But I think, in general, if you subscribe to our emails and stuff, we'll always have something new coming out. New and exciting things. So, just follow along, follow the journey.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for checking out this episode of You Should Talk To. This show is brought to you by the company with the same name, You Should Talk To, a company that helps marketing leaders find the right agency or freelancer for their situation. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow You Should Talk To wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit YouShouldTalkTo.com for more information.